Welcome to the video on role of data centers in an enterprise. This video will explain how data centers operate within an enterprise and a service-based environment. A data center can be managed and operated by an enterprise or a service provider. Many large organizations such as Facebook and Google have constructed and managed their own data centers. Though both enterprise and service provider data centers provide similar functions, there is a difference in the way they operate. Let's first look at an enterprise environment. This is how the infrastructure of an enterprise data center is laid out. This looks complicated. Let's make it simple. The major building block of an enterprise data center are campus network, private WAN, remote access, and the server farms, which includes internet, extranet, and intranet server farms. To support these infrastructure building blocks, we have network core switches and edge routers. And then we have the external services that are provided by external suppliers such as PSTN, Internet Service Providers, and VPN. This is a typical infrastructure. An enterprise, based on its need, can modify this structure. How can that be done? Here's an example. This enterprise may decide to set up two physically separated intranet server farms with no shared resources. Now, let's talk a bit about the data that is stored in an enterprise data center. Usually, the enterprise-managed data centers belong to really huge enterprises. These guys have really sensitive data to protect. You wouldn't give your bank password to a stranger, would you? Similarly, an enterprise-managed data center would typically host enterprise-level applications such as Customer Relationship Management (CRM), Enterprise Resource Planning (ERP), Supply Chain Management (SCM), Salesforce Automation (SFA), Order Processing, E-commerce. Well, these were the big guys. How about the scores of small and mid-sized businesses? They cannot afford to open a data center by themselves. So what do? They go to a service provider. That's interesting. Let's look at the service provider environment. So how does this work? Well, a service provider builds a data center and rents it out to customers to use its infrastructure. That's quite simple. So what's in it for the service provider? Such data centers are a source of revenue for the service providers. There is an agreement drawn between the customer and the service provider defining the services that the service provider would provide. Some service providers may just lease out the equipment and the customer manages it. Or the service provider can also provide server management services for the customer. Based on the customer need, service providers can lease out a server, cabinet, or cage in the data center. That's neat. To conclude, a business, big or small, can decide whether to go the enterprise data center way or to the service provider data center way.